detention. L'audience tribunal pénal international pour l'ex-Yougoslavie est faite. Please be seated.
Yes, Mr. Milosevic, we've got till 11:45 today. We will sit and take a break for a quarter of an hour, after an hour and a quarter or so. So, Mr. Milosevic, it's for you to continue your cross-examination.
Da nastavimo, gospodine Bilal. Vi ste juče rekli da u vašem selu nije bilo OVK. Želim da vas podsjetim na 4. pasus na drugoj strani vaše izjave. Čitaću polako da bi mogli da prevedu. Krajem godine OVK je uspostavio štab blizu džamije kako bi branili selo od tih čestih i neizazvanih napada. Komandir OVK u selu je bio Afet Bilali, u zagradi 25 godina. Tu je bilo oko 30 vojnika OVK, od kojih je oko 10 bilo iz sela. Dakle, ja sam vas juče pitao kako se zvao komandant u selu. Rekli ste da niste nikog vidjeli i da ne znate, a i rekli ste da nema OVK u selu. Kako objašnjavate ovo što ste rekli u vašoj izjavi?
On gjë thash që ka pas një grup e vogël të QK-s, kanë vëzhgu fshatin.
A šta su nosili od oružja oni?
Nuk e kom parë në çfarë armë. Do armë dallavaçka dhe push dreshta.
Dobro. Pitao sam vas juče, na tome smo ostali, niste mi odgovorili, da ste otišli u kuću Faika Limanija. Ko je bio u toj kući?
Katër gjenë Faik Limanit. Aty në shtëpi i gjeta, qut, në gjati, Fatmiri, edhe Saliu, edhe Elveri, edhe unë shkova me gjithë gjallë. Aty, edhe u largum për aty për shkak policisë sërbe edhe ushtrisë të orë për mas neve. Edhe shpi, u largum për aty shpi, e shkum në shpit Sadik në bijot, aty gjetëm e dhe civil, aty mrena nahër, në shpit Faikit mu plagu djali im në kam pe kodës bebushit. Shkum të sadiki aty, gjetëm një 28 vetë aty. Edhe mshelëm që aty forca sërbe në zonën. Na që të në barë, dhe me dorë për pjetë të në reje, të në matatuon, milicija edhe ushtria sërbe.
Dobro, to ćemo kasnije doći. Vi kažete da su oni svi bili civili
that they were all civilians
i da su na sebi imali
and
civilno odelo.
that they wore civilian clothes.
Zbog čega je potrebno da ističete
Why is it necessary for you to
kako su na sebi imali civilno odelo
emphasize
ako su
that
bili
they
civili?
wore civilian clothes if they were civilians anyway?
They were civilians.
Civil janë.
They were civilians.
Unë bashkëm qëllu aty të civil janë.
I found them there. They were
Dobro,
civilians.
rekli ste da su
All
imali
right. You said that they
da su imali
that
samo
they
lovačke puške.
had only
Znači,
hunting
oni su
rifles.
pucali na policiju samo iz
So
lovačkih
they were
pušaka, nisu
shooting
imali
at
druge
the
puške.
police with hunting rifles only. They didn't have any other type of rifles, did they?
What are you talking about? We seem to have changed track. You were asking about the civilians. Now, where are we going from there?
Ja govorim o onih 30,
I'm talking
kako
about
kaže svedok vojnika
those
UČK,
30, as the witness had put it, soldiers of the KLA who were in the village. Did they use only hunting rifles to shoot at the police?
You mustn't confuse witnesses by jumping from one topic to another. It's liable to confuse them and might confuse the court too. Now, all we had so far, all the witness had said was that they had hunting rifles. Now, Mr. Bilal, we're going back now to the KLA in the village who had hunting rifles. And the question was, did they use those hunting rifles to shoot at the police? Now, this isn't a question aimed, as I understand it, at the 15th of January. It's just general. Generally, did they use hunting rifles to shoot at the police?
Jo,
No.
jo,
No.
nuk kanë gjuhë policia.
They didn't fire at the police.
A ko je pucao na policiju 15.
Who did
januara?
fire at the police on the 15th of January?
Po kanë hi forcat sërbe në
Serbian
fshat
forces
15 januar,
entered the village on the 15th of January,
po që kjo ajë më animu neve civil.
and the KLA tried to help us
Po nuk
civilians,
kanë mujtën,
but they were
me
unable
ato
to.
arme nuk kanë mujtë më
With
animu.
those weapons that they had, they were
What you see?
unable to help us.
Kanë pas arme
Had
trona forcat sërbe.
heavy weapons, the
Motorina,
Serbian
trupa,
forces. They had armored vehicles, cannon,
Fshatin kanë edhe kurrë të re.
Praga. They
Edhe në
had
fshat milicia.
They had surrounded the hills round about, and they entered the village too.
A da li vam je poznat podatak o broju
And are
poginulih
you
pripadnika ove
aware of
katedre?
the number of KLA members who were killed on that day?
Po jenë vranë mala që
There was some killed in the hills.
sërt policia dhe ushtria në
By
malë
the-
kanë gjuhën në jenë vrarë.
The Serbian
teet.
army and police
nom nuk I kom pa.
fired into the hills and
Unë
killed
kom pa.
about 8, maybe 9. I didn't see them,
Më kanë thonë që jenë vrarë.
but it was said that they were killed.
A nisë me imën animu në neve civile, s'kanë mujtë.
They tried to help us civilians, but
Yes,
they
they
were
were.
unable to, and they were executed.
A Da li vam je poznat podatak o
And are you
žrtvama na strani
aware
jugoslovenske
of
vojske
the
i
number
policije?
of casualties within the ranks of the Yugoslav army and police?
I don't know.
Vi kažete da ste kasnije pobegli
You
u
say that
kuću Sadika
later
Osmanija,
you escaped to
jer ste sa
Sadiq
tog mesta
Osmani's
imali
house because
mogućnost
from there
za siguran beg u šumu.
you
Je
had
to
the
tačno?
possibility to flee into the woods safely. Is that right?
Ja nuk më koni sigurt të shkoj në pillën, për jashtë
No, it
shtëpisë
wasn't
Sadikit.
safe to go to the woods from Sadik's
forced-
place.
Policore
Because
ushtarake afrin kom.
Military and police forces were very
Me
near.
për jashtë atë gjujtën
They
me
didn't
të na armët në
let
një
us.
komand.
They didn't
Dobro,
let us go out.
ali evo, ja ću vas podsjetiti na
All
strani
right,
3.
but I'm going to remind you
U
on
drugom
page
pasusu
3
vi
in
kažete-
paragraph 2, you say,
S mesta smo odlučili da napustimo
we
štalu i
decided
odemo
straight
do
away
kuće
to leave the
Sadika
barn and to go to
Osmanija,
Sadiq
koja se
Osmani's
nalazi
house
na ivici
that is on
Gašija,
the
dela Račka,
outskirts of Gashi, the part
u
of
zagradi piše
Rashak
fotografija
that
4 priloga. Ova kuća je
photograph
udaljena manje
4,
od 100
Annex
metara.
A. This
To
house
mesto je
is
omogućavalo
100
siguran
meters
beg
away.
u
It
okolnu
made it
šumu
possible to
i
flee
stoga smo
safely
odlučili
into
da
the
tamo
neighboring
odemo.
woods. And that is why
Šta
we
je sad
decided to
tačno,
go
kako
there.
ste
Now
sad
tell me what is
rekli ili ovo
correct,
što
what
ovdje
you
piše?
said just now or what it says here in the statement.
Ma largo konën, nuk o konë pyll, po konë ledin.
It wasn't. It was further
Tani
away.
me dalën në
It
malë.
wasn't in the woods. It was in the meadows, and
Atë
from
forca
there
serbe
you could
na
get
kanë-
out into the hills. And there's
Në kanë qitë
Serbian
në bora, në kanë
forces
re, e në kanë qitë në
pulled us
breg.
out into the
Për
yard
mi dalë në breg atë forcat
and beat us
politare.
and stripped us
Serbe.
to our underwear.
E policia, ushtria, atë ishin konën ungjë.
The,
Rënit na,
we
Is it-
were sitting there.
28 vetë jemi konën,
We were there were 28 of us.
24 jenë zëkotu. Mini herë,
24
unë kom qenë
were executed
veti pasti
immediately.
për
I
mas.
was the fifth one behind,
Ketë jenë vrau atë,
and they were all killed
pe
there
policijës
by
edhe pe
the
ushtrijës.
Serbian army and police.
Me orën tonin i kanë vrau këta gjenë.
They were
Ragit bajomi që
killed
kanë zirë zamrën
by-
për gjalli, ja kanë qitë të
on your orders, and they
kapuqin e
pulled
kanë shtin
out
bloj.
Avdi's
7-8 i kanë
heart
masakru
and
për
put it
zdek.
on the ground, and one of them they stuffed his white hat in his mouth.
Ja vas pitam drugo,
I am asking you
ovdje ste
something
rekli
else.
da ste imali
You
dodatno
said
siguran
here
beg u šumu,
that
ali
you had a safe escape from
i vi
there
ni
into the
ostali koji
woods.
su se tu nalazili niste pobegli
You
pred dolaska
and the
policije.
others
Dakle,
who
to
were
ste
there
sada
did
rekli.
not escape before the police
Zašto
came.
niste
That's what you
onda
said
pobegli
just
kad ste
now.
htjeli da
So
pobegli?
then why did you not escape when you wanted to escape?
Ja, neve në kanë rejnë janë në barë,
We were beaten in the
edhe në kanë
yard,
shtit për tokët,
and
tani
we were
kanë thonë një ka një,
laid down on the ground one by
ka 2-3
one,
hopa për mas edhe dinin malë.
and then they taking 2 or 3
Ata kanë
steps
folë me
back
toke vokë, kanë thonë,
they
pritni se ta e në
talked
civil,
with
se kutani.
their walkie-talkies.
Se nuk kom njës me ikë.
Mr. Bilal, we understand what you've been through. But the question was this, that it appears from your statement that the house you went to would provide or might have provided a safe escape into the woods. But you, in fact, went to the house and then went and joined a group in the barn. And the question is, did you have an opportunity to escape into the woods? Could you have escaped?
Nuk kemi pas
No.
mundësien
We had no
me dalë malë, kur
chance to escape to the
na kanë
hills.
rëzaku,
because we were surrounded, and we were surrounded by about 30 police there in the yard, police and soldiers.
Da li su sva lica koja su sa vama bila u kući Faika Limanija prešla u kuću
All the
Sadika
persons who were in Limani's house with you, did they all go to Osmani's house, all of them?
Yes.
Da li ste se kretali u grupi ili pojedinačno?
Did you go in a group or did you move individually?
We went together as a group.
A da li je prilikom prelaska neko na vas pucao?
And during this transfer, did anybody shoot at you?
The Serbian police shot. At the walls, we were inside and they shot all around.
Da li vas je prilikom tog pokretanja iz kuće u kuću primetila
When you were
policija?
moving from one house to the other, did the police notice you?
They broke down the doors, they broke down the cupboards, and they entered Sadik's yard. We saw them very well through the windows. We saw that they were all around.
Hačif iz Petrova radio u vašem selu.
Hačif from Petrova, what was he doing in your village at 7 o'clock in the morning when the attack started?
He was a guest at his uncle's. He was a visitor. He had come before the war started, 2 weeks previously, and had gone to Sadik there.
Da li je Hačif bio pripadnik UČK?
Was Hačif a member of the KLA?
No.
You.
No. I saw him myself, and he wasn't a member of the KLA. Not one of us was a member of the KLA.
You stated that when around 10 o'clock the policeman found your group in the village, there was shooting all the time. Do you know who was fighting against who? You say that there was incessant shooting. Between whom?
At us, the Serbian army and police were firing at the village and round it.
That means that the KLA did not shoot, right?
I don't know whether it shot or not. I didn't see them.
All right, tell me, since you say that there was shooting all the time, when they entered your house, how come there was shooting in the village all the time and the police searched the 30 of you, took your documents and beat you for an hour, as you had put it, and on the other hand, there was shooting all round?
They were shooting from the hills because, and in the yards they killed civilians, and meanwhile they were shooting from the hills. They were firing from armored vehicles, and there were tanks around the village. But they started at 6 o'clock. A little bit before 6, I didn't have a watch. They were firing at the village because they had us surrounded. all around the village. And then they came into the yards killing civilians.
The question was, if that shooting was going on, how was it possible for the police to search you and take your documents and beat you for an hour or so if there was shooting going on all round? Could you just explain that to us, please?
The police were not scared. They spoke through their walkie-talkies and said, "Don't fire where we are."
Where was it that you were beaten and searched? Where was that all happening?
In Sadik's yard, inside Sadik's yard.
And was there some sort of protection there from the shooting?
There were two houses and a barn. We were in the barn, and they were firing from the hills. But it didn't go, the bullets didn't come inside the yard.
Yes, and you stated that around noon, after this maltreatment that you refer to and after the threats, that the police let you leave in the direction of the village of Rance. How is that possible?
At 12 o'clock they told us, go out to the hills one by one, not to go to Rance, but to go out onto the hills one by one.
All right, since they told you to go into the hills, that means that they didn't kill anyone in that yard of yours. They told you to go into the hills after they had searched you. Isn't that right?
That's right. They searched us, they took our identity cards, and then they said, go to the hills one by one, and I heard them talking on their walkie-talkie themselves, and they said, these are civilians, and the voice came, kill them all. They are unarmed.
All right, they searched you, they established that you were civilians, and they said over the walkie-talkie that you were civilians, and they let you go in the direction of the village of Rance. Is that right?
It was called the Hill of Bebush, up the Hill of Bebush. And we went up onto the hill.
All right, nobody guarded you, nobody escorted you as you were leaving. You left on your own.
The police and army ordered us to go uphill from Sadik's yard.
And you stated, well, yes, they said that you should go, and you left, but they did not escort you, right? They didn't go with you.
No, they didn't come. No, they didn't come from the yard.
You said that Ali Azimi sat down and told the others to continue the journey without him because he was too exhausted. You were walking uphill. He got very tired. He sat down and you continued the journey.
He was the last. He was very tired. And he sat down and he said, "You others go on." He was the last one. I didn't know that he was left there, and he didn't know that the others were executed up above. He was not 150 meters behind. He was the last.
Now I don't understand. You were going up towards the hill. You were moving, and you say that he did not know that the others had been killed above. Did you know that others, or that somebody had been killed above?
He didn't know what was happening up there. He came up later, and I said, "Have you not seen that they've all been executed?" And I said, "Come, crawl over there. They've all been killed." There were about 3 behind me, and they went into the forests, and they survived too. There were 5 of us in all who survived.
In your statement, you said that as you entered Gudura, in the middle of the hill, you saw Serbian police wearing uniforms. And then you say that you saw only 1 policeman. Well, how many policemen did you see, in fact, up there?
Well, there
wasn't 1 policeman, there were many policemen. There was a lot of shooting and executions going on. I couldn't tell you how many were laying in wait up there.
I can't hear the interpretation well. It's coming very quietly. The volume is very low. So therefore, I didn't understand. How many policemen did you in fact see? You speak of a group of policemen, and you also say that you saw 1. So how many were there in fact?
He said at the end of his last answer, "I couldn't tell how many there were. How many were lying in wait up there?" He said there wasn't 1 policeman, there were many.
You said that you feigned death for some 5 hours. Is that right?
Yes.
5
hours I remained unmoved. Just like as if I were dead. Well, it was only when it got dark that I got up. And then I saw 5 or 6 people dead around me, and I was so confused I didn't know what to do. And then Shaban came and saved me asked me, "Are you injured? Are you injured? Are you still alive?" And I said, "I'm okay." And I said, I'm here, I'm okay. He told me that everyone had been killed.
All right. Well, in that case, there's something I don't understand here. Mrs. Romano yesterday explained to us and said that you were without consciousness for 5 hours. This is how I understood her, and this is what the transcript said. So, were you without consciousness for 5 hours, or did you pretend to be dead?
I
may have lost conscience. I don't know. There was so much shooting. I didn't even know where I was, what was going on.
Yes, Mr. Mali.
Your Honor, according to the summary that I read, I stated that he feigned death for about 5 hours.
Feigned death, yes. Maybe there was a mistranslation. Thank you. In any event, it's what the witness says which counts.
Very well. But during that time, when you pretended to be dead, did you hear voices of policemen?
No, I didn't.
How long did the policemen remain in that spot? Do you have any idea of that?
Police stayed there until they'd finished executing everyone. I didn't see when they withdrew.
But can you give us any idea of the time that they were there or not? It may not be possible.
I don't know. They were there in the middle of the night, but I don't know where they were exactly.
No, but during the time in the ravine, during the executions, and you were feigning dead, can you help us as to how long the police were about in the ravine or not? If you can't say so, just say so.
I was lying there when they were executing all the people. And then I lost conscience. And I don't know what happened afterwards. There were 7 or 8 who were massacred. And then there were... They pulled out, one of them, they pulled out his heart alive and did other terrible things. And then I didn't see what happened afterwards. And they put a cap in someone's mouth, stuffed the cap in his mouth.
Dobro.
All right. You said a moment ago that you pretended to be dead, and now you're saying that you were without consciousness. So can you be more precise? Were you conscious or were you unconscious?
I think he's answered that. He pretended to be dead, and he may have lost consciousness for a time. Mr. Bilal, are you all right? You feel you can go on?
I can't hear you.
I said.
I'm all right.
Were you all right to go on? That was the question.
I'm all right.
Well.
Sada ste rekli.
You just said, and this is in your statement as well, that some of the bodies were mutilated. And just now you told us that the body of Rakip Bajrami was mutilated as well, and that his heart had been ripped out of his chest while he was still alive, and you spoke of similar atrocities. Do you know that all of the reports pertaining to these dead mentioned that none of the bodies had been mutilated, and they never ever mentioned that somebody's heart had been ripped out of their chests while they were still alive? So why did you invent this?
I saw that myself. He had no bullet injuries. I saw the knife and saw how they ripped his heart out.
So therefore, who ripped his heart with a knife? Did you see that? Were there many people involved or just one person? How many?
I know it was the police who did it themselves. I He didn't have any bullet wounds on his body. I know that. It was just the wound from the knife when they ripped out his heart. That was the only injury on his body.
Did you actually see it happen? Or is it that you saw him lying there afterwards with his heart ripped out?
I went there and saw the body when it was after it was dark.
Did
you hear or did you see policemen and soldiers mutilating these bodies? Because you say that many bodies were mutilated.
His statement says some of the bodies were mutilated.
All right, well then let's pinpoint this, Mr. May. How many bodies were mutilated?
5 or 6 were mutilated. Once they had been killed, they took a knife to them.
Did you see that when they took a knife to their bodies?
I didn't see it myself. I went to see once the Serb police and army had withdrawn, and I saw the knife injuries.
And what time was it when you came to see them mutilated with knives?
Just after the fall of dark, it was about twilight. It was the time of twilight.
Do you know that all of these experts, including international and Yugoslav ones, examined the bodies and did not find any knife wounds or hearts ripped out or the wounds that you described so far?
You have put that to the witness, and he's given his evidence about it. You've put the point to him once already.
Was there much blood around bodies?
Po kishte gjak.
Yes, there was blood.
Çdo njeri që u vra ka pas gjak.
Around all the bodies, people who had been killed, there was blood.
Was there much blood around the bodies?
Yes, there was.
Kishte.
Yeah, there was.
Dobro.
Very well. Can you please explain to me a sentence in your statement, page 4, paragraph 3, line 5? Most of the dead were in a large group, and it was obvious they were hit in the same position in which the bodies were found later. What I am interested in is, what do you mean when you say hit in the same position in which the bodies were found later?
Ata e nxit krejt për një herë.
They were all found at the same time. They weren't found later.
Por nga të militëve në konë një 5-6, nga të militëve ku kanë hasë milici.
When 5 or 6 of the Serb policemen entered there.
Ata një qëtë në konë për mas kejtë ranë mas tyne.
They were all in a line there, one beside the other.
When you say hit in the same position in which the bodies were found, does that mean that they were lying on the ground and that they were hit as they were lying on the ground? Or rather, executed them in that position, as you say?
No,
they weren't lying down, they were standing up. They were executed standing.
And you saw them being executed? You personally saw with your own eyes that they were executed?
Saw them standing on their feet. And then there were Serb forces there, and I heard the firing. And then they fell onto the ground.
Did you see this with your own eyes, them being executed?
Yes.
Was it in the same way that you saw the heart being ripped out from somebody's chest in that same spot?
That's a comment. He can't answer that.
Well, I'm asking, was that from the same spot in which he saw the heart being ripped out from somebody's chest while the person was still alive, that he saw people being executed in that same spot?
I was near and I saw them standing and being executed.
Your Honor, I might be wrong, but maybe according to the transcript, I don't believe he said he saw the heart being ripped off. I think he saw the wound.
I have a note that at one stage he did say that, although he later changed that. and said that no matter, we'll have to look at it in the transcript. We can't decide it now. Yet, Mr. Milosevic, you've had now more than your hour with this witness. Is there any other topic you want to ask him about?
Da, imam još dosta pitanja.
Yes, I have many more questions because this witness is giving evidence about some, you will have to admit, fairly incredible things.
No, that's a matter of comment by you. We accept that he is an important witness.
Dobro, tvrdite da ste odatle otišli.
We'll give you 15 more minutes because of the importance of this evidence.
Tvrdite da ste odatle otišli u
You
šumu i
claim
zapalili
that
vatru,
from there, from that spot, you went into the woods and started a fire there. Is that right?
Yes.
Jeste bili sigurni onda da nema u blizini
Were you
policije ili vojske koja možda
sure
primeti
then
u
that there were
srednoću
no
vašu vatru?
policemen or soldiers in the vicinity that could notice this fire of yours, even from a large distance?
I was sure we were up on the mountains quite a ways away. In a ravine, a type of ravine, and we made a fire. And we had water there. There was a lot of cold water, and we stayed there until the next morning.
A recite mi, kako ste znali da u Račku više nema
Can you
vojske
tell
i
me,
policije?
please, how did you know that there were no more policemen or soldiers in Račak?
On the 16th, at 10 o'clock in the morning, a man came out and cried, "Anyone up in the mountains, you can come back now because there's no more Serb police and army in the village." And Walker arrived. It was 10, we went down back into the village. And I tried to get back home.
Vi tvrdite da ste saznali da je u Račku
So you
ubijeno
claim
15
that you
pripadnika OVK.
learned that 15 members of the KLA had been killed in Račak. Is that right?
I didn't say 15. 8 or 9. I never said 15. I didn't see them though. They were killed up in the mountains. I didn't see that.
Evo piše ovde u ovom
Well,
velikom
it says
pasusu na
here,
strani 5.
in the large paragraph on page 5 of your statement,
Nadalje, napred kažete, tada sam otišao iz sela za
and before that you
Godance
say that
17.
at that
januara
point you left the
99.
village and went to
Moj sin je
Godance on the
otišao dan
17th of
ranije.
January
To
99.
je
You say
vaš
that
sin
your
koji je
son had
bio ranjen u nogu, je li tako?
left the day before. Is that the son that had been wounded in his leg?
Yes. Yes, my son was wounded in his leg. It was the 17th when we left the village.
I onda kažete na početku
And then you go on to say,
ovog velikog pasusa, nadalje
in the
rečeno mi
beginning
je da
of
je
this large
15.
paragraph,
januara
you say
99.
further
ubijeno
I was told that on the 15th of January 1999, 15 members of the KLA were killed. They were all dressed in KLA uniforms. The only one...
English, I'm going to interrupt you. The English has 10.
Well, I'm talking about the figure, not the word. What I have here is a document I got from you.
The figure that we have is 10.
Mr. May, this is this witness's statement. Mr. Tapušković, Your Honors, the Serbian version says 15. I don't know what the Albanian version says, but the Serbian one says 15.
Well, we must check with the Albanian. Can the prosecution assist at the moment?
Pa imate albansku verziju. Ova srpska je prevedena sa albanskog, nije sa engleskog.
This Serbian version has been translated from Albanian.
Well, no doubt the English has too.
The Albanian interpreters note that the Albanian version says 10.
Yep. According to the interpreters, the Albanian version too has 10. So it looks as though there's been a mistranslation somewhere. Yes, Mr. Milosevic.
The only one from the village who had been killed was Šačir Latifi. And then here you're going to say Sadik Mujota was one of the killed, and he seemed to have a uniform on him. Where was his body found?
Up in the mountains. That's what they told me, at least, up in the mountains.
Is it true that he was from the village of Malopolce?
I know that he's from Malopolce.
Tell me, please, what did the trenches look like? The trenches that you dug out in Račak and the vicinity, what did they look like?
Lagomat on civil.
I was a civilian. We, with the women and the children, we dug the trenches during the night because they were shooting, and we had to escape to the mountains. I don't really know what they were like.
All right, but since you dug them out, you had to see what they looked like, how deep they were, how wide they were. How many of you participated in these works?
I don't know how many people participated. I helped dig them.
15
centimeters, not deeper. 50 centimeters.
So you say 50 centimeters deep. Were these the trenches that you dug out in December or prior to that time?
I don't remember the date. I didn't write the date down, so I don't remember.
Approximately. I'm not interested in the exact date. I'm just interested in the approximate time.
Kad je to bilo otprilike?
When was it approximately?
na početku zime, u sred zime, pre
Was
nove
it beginning
godine,
of
mnogo
the
ili malo
winter,
i tako
the
dalje.
end of the winter, before the new year, after the new year, quite a while after the new year?
Para 23.
It was before New Year's.
Koliko pre nove godine? 2 nedelje, 5 nedelja?
And can you tell us how long before the new year? Was it 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks?
Njeni mu je džus.
Probably a month and a half.
A jeste li vi radili i na pravljenju bunkera ili ste
Did
samo
you
kopali rove?
participate in the building of bunkers as well, or only in the digging out of trenches?
On vet kom på nu. Lagam vet kom på nu.
I just did the trenches.
A ko je radio bunker?
And who did the bunker?
No. No kedi.
Don't know. I don't know.
No kom chan. Nalma.
I wasn't up there. I was up
Walker i
there.
ostali iz misije bili
You
u selu kad
claim
ste se
that
vi
Walker
vratili, je li
and
tako?
the others from the mission were there when you came back. Is that right?
På med satt möjligheten i januari.
That's right, on the 17th.
Januara.
So the 17th of
Ili
January,
16.
or was it the 16th of January?
Džaš möjligheten.
16th.
16. Vi
So
kažete
the
da ste došli u
16th.
selo oko 10
You say
sati.
that you came to the village
Jeste
around 10
odmah s njim
o'clock.
razgovarali?
Did you speak to him immediately after that?
Ja, nu kom för on. Vet du vad på eller kom på on.
I didn't
På nu kom kapit mot
talk,
huskurja.
but I saw him and he saw me. But we didn't talk because I wasn't feeling well, and he gestured to me to go home.
To je bilo oko koliko sati? Oko 10, znači.
When was that approximately? Around 10 o'clock, if I understand what it says here correctly?
Kan ni möjlighet sa det.
About 11
Džaš möjlighet.
on the 16th.
Oko 11 sati.
Oh, around 11.
Po.
Yes.
Dobro, znači s vama nije
All right.
razgovarao
So he
jer ste
did
vi
not speak to
se
you
osjećali loše.
because you were not feeling
Ali
well.
razgovarao sa svim ostalim
But did he talk to
seljacima u
everybody
selu.
else, to all the other villagers?
Kaful med fšatorčija.
He did. He spoke to the other villagers.
Da, je bilo tada, jeste vidjeli da je razgovarao i sa
Did you
pripadnicima
see him
OVK
speaking to the members of the KLA as
koji
well,
su tada bili u selu?
who were in the village then?
No kom på on. Već med civila
I
kom på.
didn't
Se
see
nu kom
that.
på.
I only saw him talking to civilians.
Så on
Da li
sko
ste uopšte vidjeli nekoga od pripadnika
Did you
UČK?
see any members of the
u selu kad
KLA
ste se
at all
vratili,
in the
kad
village
je
when you
tamo bio
came
Walker?
back and when Walker was there?
Da li ih je bilo tada u selu?
Were there any in the village at that time?
kolim zdjeste put pe mol.
When I'd come down from the mountains, I didn't see anybody but civilians and Walker,
Med džaš möjligheten
and
mol
then I
kom
went
ču.
home. And then I
Negin
didn't
med
see
stat
anything
möjligheten
more.
kom ču heć.
And until the 17th, I didn't get up at all.
Dobro, to je bilo 16.
All right, that was on the 16th.
Da ne mešamo datume.
Let's not confuse the dates.
Shvatam da je to bilo 16.
I understand that this was on the
Sutradan posle
16th, isn't that right? The
događaja u
following day, the day after the events that took place in Račak.
Pa on med džaš
That's
möjligheten.
right. On the 16th,
Man hallå. Det är året.
I came down
Kolim
from
zdjeste
the
molit.
hills on
Med džaš
at
möjligheten kolim
10
zdjeste
o'clock.
molit post.
And it was then that I
Zatim
went
meta.
down to the village and met
Molikom
these
dalen skurs
people.
molikom dalen.
And then I went back home and I
Peace.
didn't go out of my house again.
I left home the next day on the 17th.
And I left the mosque neighborhood and went down.
And who took Walker and his people, his associates, to that place where the bodies were, the ravine?
They all came and they went everywhere, and they inspected everywhere in the village and in the ravine.
So they did it on their own. Nobody took them there. Or did some of the locals take them there?
Someone from the village took them. One of the leading people in the village took them. I didn't see this.
All right. How many of you were there in that group as you were walking towards the ravine? How many of you were there? You were in the house together, you went out, you went up there, you walked uphill, you went to Rance. How many of you were there in this group?
What?
24 executed, 5 of us survived.
Mr. Milosevic, your time is now over, and we've already gone and dealt with the incident in the ravine. Mr. Trubiskovich.
Hvala, časni sude.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ja bih gospodina Bilala
I would like to put just a few questions to Mr. Bilal. Just a few questions, Mr. Bilal. If I have understood things correctly, when you left the yard of Sadiq Osmani, the police stayed in the yard. Is that right?
That's right.
Could you please explain to the court what is the distance between that yard and this ravine where the things that you spoke about happened?
I don't know how far it is. From the Bebush Hill to Sadik's yard, I don't know, but it's quite a distance.
How much time did you need? Can you tell us that? How much time it took? If it was quite a distance, how much time did you need to get from one place to the other?
It wasn't all that far, but it was uphill. It took about 20 minutes, but it was slowly. Uphill, it was 20-30 minutes.
All this time, there was no police and no soldiers near you as you were walking towards that place, right?
The police remained there in the yard, and they said, "You go up the hill," and they remained down below.
Dobro, to sam razumeo. Znači,
I've
dok ste hodali tih 20 minuta,
So while you were
policija nije bilo u blizini
walking,
dok ih
during
niste
those 20
gore
minutes or
sreli.
so,
Je li
there
tako?
were no police around until you encountered them up there. Is that right?
Nuk ka pas rrota milic hiç. Derisa jemi dalë nalt atje.
And there were none until we went up there.
A da li je među vama bilo reči dok ste tako išli
As you
da se možda
were
raziđete po kućama
walking, did you
uz koje ste
consider
prolazili
the
ili da ne
possibility
idete
of
baš u tom pravcu?
going
Da li ste
to
razmišljali o tome da
different
ipak ne uradite
houses
ono
in
što vam je
smaller
policija
groups
kazala?
and not going in all of you together in the same direction? Did you consider not doing what the police had told you to do?
Jo se nuk kemi guxu. Jashtë na milicia
No,
vetë drejt
because we
ishin din
didn't
mal. Nuk kemi
dare.
guxu kur ka hiç.
The police said go
Krejt tubë na
straight
kanë qitë
up
aty bre.
to the hills. We were all together in a group.
Razumeo sam. Hvala.
I've understood that, thank you. But I'm interested in the following. You said that your son was wounded in the yard. Was this a serious wound? Was he bleeding?
Dilke ka pak. Po ja kanë lidh.
He was bleeding a little, but they tied his wounds. The people around about tied his wounds, and he was able to walk.
Pa je li on išao sa vama ili šta je bilo sa
Was
vašim
he
sinom?
walking with you, or what happened to this son of yours?
Me mu ka ardhur drejt shpejt Sadikit atë.
He came to Sadik's house with me,
Kur i mi dal na bar,
and
na
when we
kanë
went
qenë
into the
policia.
yard,
Edhe
thrown
ushtria
out
serbe.
by the
Na
police,
bar, ajo ka na bar me mu.
he was in the yard with me,
Edhe një djalë
and there was a boy,
Halim e ka pas emrin një vogël
Halim,
12
his
vjeçar.
name
Nga ta nga
was
që në
12
konën.
years old,
E ai kajka e djalit 12 vjeçar kajke.
and he was
Edhe ka
crying.
pyetë milici për zidi, a djalin tem me pyet kush ka armë pe
Police
kush
put him
ka
up
armë
against the wall and asked
pe
him,
juve këtu.
which
Djali
one of
jam
you
tha,
have
nuk kem
weapons?
armë na.
And my
Na
son
jem civil.
said, we don't have any
Jemi armë
weapons,
për
we are
shtëpia,
civilians,
që tu jemi strehu.
and we have come in among these
Edhe
houses
kanë
to
marrë
take
a
shelter.
djalin
And they took
Halimin
this boy
edhe
Halim
djalin tim i ka
and my
shtinë të
son,
familja, të gratë,
and they
e
put
ka shtinë në qëtër
them
shtëpi.
in another house with the women.
Vaš sin je živ?
Živ.
Your son is alive, right?
Yes, he's
Ja bih
alive.
molio samo da se još pokaže ova fotografija koja je u prilozima, koja je napravljena po onome što je govorio
The
gospodin Halil.
photograph that depicts what Mr. Halil spoke
Ona je-
about.
to je
Could I
fotografija
please
broj 8.
tender that? That is photograph number 8.
Postoji u prilogu.
I would like to have it exhibited, please.
John, I think they are already exhibit, and I have here a color copy if you can help.
Let's have the color then, please. Thank you.
Interesuje me fotografija broj 8.
I'm interested in photograph number 8.
I s tim u vezi
In connection with that,
svom pismenom iskazu
in your written
na strani
statement
3,
on page
pasus
3,
6
paragraph 6
engleske verzije,
of the English version,
vi ste kazali ovako.
you said the following.
Mislim, u tom trenutku sam
At that
pogledao prema
moment,
gore,
I looked up
uz guduru,
the
i primetio
ravine,
sam
and
policajca
I noticed a
kako čuči
policeman
i puca u našem pravcu.
spotting and shooting in our direction.
Mislim da je on
I
bio
think
najodgovorniji
that
za
he
ubistva
was
onih
the most
koji su bili
responsible
meni
person
najbliži.
for the
Fotografija
killing
8
of those who were nearest to me.
prikazuje
Photograph
poziciju
number
policajca
8
koji je pucao u
depicts
našem
the
pravcu.
position of
Je
the
li to
policeman who
mesto
was
odakle
shooting in our direction. Is that the place
policajac
from which
pucao?
the
On se
policeman was
nalazio
shooting?
potpuno u guduri.
He was fully in the
On
ravine.
nije bio sa strane, nego
He
je bio
was
na ovom
not
mestu kako ste vi
on the
pokazali.
side. He was at this spot that you pointed out, right?
Look, Peshab.
I can't see this.
Just look at the photograph beside you. You'll be able to see more clearly. Mr. Usher, would you just put it in front of the witness?
Okay.
To je bio policajac koji je u stvari najodgovorniji, koji je najviše pucao.
So that is where the policeman was, the one who was the most responsible, the one who shot at you the most, right? From that place, he was there, he was fully in the ravine, right?
That's here where the police shot.
Ne, ali vi ste na fotografiji koja je napravljena.
No, but the photograph.
Kako ste vi pokazivali
I mean, the way you showed it on the spot. You stood at the place where the policeman had been. That is what you showed the investigators. Not on the side, not the place where you're showing now.
They were here and here. From here, from this point, they came, and from here, and from there. But there was a line.
Ja vas molim, gospodine, samo da pokažete da li je ova fotografija koju ste ranije vidjeli već i koja je napravljena po vašim iskustvima,
that you saw before. This is the photograph that was made according to your instructions. The policeman that did most of the shooting, was he in the gully at the place where you stood yourself while the picture was being taken? He wasn't on the side, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honours.
Yes, let the photograph go back. Any re-examination, Mr. Malik?
I just have two errors, Your Honor. While the usher is still there, I would like to show another photo. Photo number 5. Yeah. And just to clarify, I think we are talking about the exhibit 156, tab 8. And this will be photo 5. Mr. Abdu, this is the photo where you show the way, or the way between the Sadiq's house and the Babush Hill. Is it correct?
Exacto.
That's correct.
Oh, this is the wrong photo. Yeah, this. Can you point, if you can't see, can you point to the court where was the house, the barn and the house?
Here's the entrance, just here.
In the other photo, can you see the house? Photo, the 5, number 5.
This is the house.
But where, Mr. Abdu, where you standing there in photo number 5?
Oh.
Yes.
Where is the house in this photo? It's downstairs? Down the hill?
Down below.
And there was a place where the policemen were?
You can't see it here, but it's down there, down below.
And there were also policemen on the top of the hill. Is that correct?
On the hill up there?
Yes. Or somewhere up in the hill.
Up there on the hill? The Serbian police was up there on the hill.
So they can easily shoot at you while you were going from the Babush Hill to the Sadik's house. Or the opposite, from the Sadik's house to the Babush Hill.
Yes, they could have done if they wished. But they knew there was this guard up there on the hill. And that they would kill them.
So could you escape while you were going up the hill? You and the other person that were in your group?
No, slowly. We went up there in a line.
Thank you. Mr. Avdiu, in the ravine after the shooting, you feigned that and you remained there for 5 hours. Yes or no?
Yes.
And it was getting dark, and at that time you proceed to check if there were other survivors. Yes or no?
Those who were behind me survived. And the others were in line and were executed.
And there was the time when you saw some bodies, some dead people?
Yes.
And you refer to mutilations. Did you see the police ripping out the heart of Bayrami, or did you see the wound on his body after, when you were checking the bodies?
I didn't see the police tearing out the heart, but after the police withdrew, when I had gone out there, and I saw there was no blood from a bullet, I saw that his heart had been torn out with a knife.
Did you see the knife?
No, I didn't see the knife.
You just saw the wound. Is that correct?
Only the wound. I only saw the wound.
And Mr. Avdiu, do you have any medical training or experience?
I don't understand this question.
Have you ever gone to a medical school?
No, I think you've taken this as far as you can. Yes, thank you. Mr. Avdiu, that concludes your evidence. Thank you for coming to the International Tribunal to give it. You are now free to go.
Thank you as well.
We'll take the adjournment. Is it proposed to call Mr. Abrahams next?
Well, I'd understood that the court wanted to deal with administrative matters. I'm entirely in your hands. Mr. Abrahams would certainly like to get on in order to have a chance of getting away sooner rather than later. But
there are issues about his evidence which it may be useful to discuss at the outset as to its admissibility. And I have in mind that there's a great deal of history in it, which I doubt we'll admit. But we could discuss that afterwards.
The position, incidentally, so far as the redacted statement is concerned, is that all those whose names had been redacted have now been contacted or are the subject of waiver by Human Rights Watch, and therefore a complete and unredacted statement is now available, and I think probably has been served, but certainly can be served.
Well, we'll discuss. The sensible course maybe is to discuss his evidence when we return. The administrative matters may not be complete because we have only just received your disclosure document, and we require to analyze that as to the dates of the disclosure of the witnesses and as to whether we should give leave for witnesses whose evidence has not been disclosed to be called. It's one of the matters we'll have to consider. We're not in a position to deal with that till we've analysed it fully. So it may be that matters will be shortened, but it may be convenient to deal with administrative matters, and if there's time to start on Mr. Abrahams if we admit him. There's an objection, of course, from the accused as to his being called at all. Yes, we'll adjourn now. Quarter of an hour, please. We'll sit again at 22.
All rise. Vieux vous lever. Please be seated.
Mr. Nice, let me deal with one matter of which we've just had notification. The accused apparently has to have further dental work next week. On Wednesday, apparently the appointment is earlier in the morning, and we'll sit at 9:30, unless he's not here, of course. We have suggested, I should point out, that perhaps the dental work could be in the afternoon. Apparently the dentist does not come in the afternoon. So here we are. That's one matter. About the timetabling. What it seems sensible to do now is to discuss what we can about your application. We ought perhaps the most sensible way to deal with it is to look at witnesses for next week.
We have an up-to-date list, which I have, on which I made some marks myself. So if that can be provided, it already is provided, there we are. For reasons that the Chamber's aware of, K-12 has to be taken on Monday. Well, it certainly started on Monday, I think. So if Mr. Abraham were to start today and to finish today or on Monday, no problem. But there is a possibility he would have to be wrapped round K-12 if there was any chance of K-12 not being started on Monday, I think. But we'd hope that they could both be finished by Monday. That then takes us to Tuesday, and look, the list you've got is in slightly different format from mine. Sorry, let me just see where we are. Then we have, my calculations are that Mehmeti, Bekiri, Shabani might all be dealt with on the Tuesday. K7, who will, when here, testify without protective measures, it appears, is on Wednesday. Henry, incidentally, I know the Chamber inquired about verifiers. This is one of the, well, this was a verifier, Henry. There's one other person who falls into a broadly similar but not identical position. So there will be at least two serving the purpose that concerned His Honour Judge Robinson. So Henry on Wednesday, possibly into Thursday. Now, we don't yet know about the 92 bis status of Zanicki, but he could be Thursday, as could Gemini, and possibly going into Friday. Then there would be Popeye and Ramadani. Elshani, we feel we may now be able to withdraw in the interest of saving time. And that will then bring us conveniently, if the estimates are accurate, to the 10th of June, which is a Monday. We will, in this process, have passed from Rachak to Bela Cirkva, but there will be outstanding some Rachak witnesses. Walker is not available at the moment. He's elsewhere in the world, a long way away, but we are hoping that he will be able to come on the 11th or 12th of June or thereabouts. There's another man in respect of whom I raised a somewhat oblique request yesterday for a Rule 70 ruling, and I'll be able to timetable his arrival once I know the result of that request. There's then outstanding the possibility of the man Dawkins referred to by General Maisonneuve coming. So there are those three witnesses who will certainly be more than 2 days in total, I imagine, if Walker is, or perhaps not, probably, if Walker is to be cross-examined at any length. That takes us to the end of next week, and then into the following week. Would you want to like me to press on, because we've got things timetabled right up until
maybe convenient.
July, and Your Honour can see what the position is. So that, again, obviously the further away we get, the less likely forecasts are to be accurate. But K6 on the 10th of June, then Walker maybe on the 11th and 12th, we hope, with Naumann on the 13th and 14th. That brings us then to the following week, and Vlasy, who's been disclosed, and a witness who could easily last more than 1 day. So we've marked him for perhaps the 17th and 18th. There's then the child witness on the 19th, although he will not take very long, I think. Hodja and possibly Hadjiad Dia on the 19th, perhaps running into the 20th. We now being in Jakovica generally. Moving to Suvoreka on the 21st, it would be with Berisha. And on the same 21st, it seems probable or possible one could accommodate Glogai and also Berisha, given the strike rate that we've been able to achieve. We then come to C40, also known as K35. Now, this is a witness for whom a video application is being made and will be with you almost immediately, and who I think will be seeking a high level of protective measures, possibly closed session. In fact, I think almost certainly closed session. But if he gives evidence, it will take some considerable period of time. So that the first thing that has to be organised is obviously an early resolution of those issues, because it would be terrible waste of time for them to be resolved in a way that's adverse to his giving evidence only on the morning when there are 3 days set aside for him. So we must try and timetable, perhaps next week or the latest the week after, any objection, and no doubt there will be objection, to the various measures sought for him. But until that happens, these are the 3 days set aside for him.
Pausing there, he's got a C as well as a K number, so I guess that means he's involved in broader matters.
That's right, and I know the Chamber has the general point that I'm only seeking to call witnesses once, so some witnesses in Kosovo will cover bits of Croatia and Bosnia, and it may be inevitable that some witnesses in Bosnia and Croatia will also be capable of giving evidence about Kosovo. But if I just stay with C40, there is the possibility of one other witness seeking video facilities in the same location as C40. That isn't quite resolved yet. If he does, then, and if we make the decision that we seek to call him, then it would be sensible to have the two witnesses dealt with together because of the resource implications for registry and everybody else. And so it may be worth raising at least as a possibility that those 3 days could accommodate, or those 3 days running into the next day could accommodate a further video witness, but that'll have to fall for consideration a little later. We then come to C39.
No applications have been in relation to these?
Not yet, no. These are witnesses whose availability has only recently been determined and whose attitude has only finally crystallized. But I think they'll be with you today, I certainly hope so. C39 is another extended witness, and we've provisionally marked 3 days for him, taking us into the 2nd of July. Can I just pause there? A general problem with the 92 bis witnesses who are heard for cross-examination. It's been necessary, obviously, to keep a sort of supply of them here. It's a rather unattractive way of describing it, but so that we can be sure that we can fill available court time whenever time becomes available. We have no other alternative. It's a very expensive exercise. I've been given the figures by those involved, and it's having a serious effect on the budget. One possibility, which I must at least mention, although I'm not sure that it's appropriate in this case, would be to block out a fortnight of time, have a video in Pristina, and take them all. But of course, if we, assuming that's possible, and it's something that would commend itself enormously to those who have budgetary concerns as one of their major interests. Assuming it's possible, it has the grave disadvantage for us that we simply then don't have a reservoir of people we can use to fill up time when witnesses go short. And with the time scale that's been imposed, it's absolutely vital that we use every available second. But it may be something that can be considered, but it will come with an inevitable risk that there will be days when there will be downtime. But I mention it. So coming back to where we were, C39 into the 2nd of July, then we've Petrish and Sandra Mitchell. I don't think, on reflection, that they need 2 days each, and so either there will be the need for 92 bis witnesses there, or alternatively they can be bunched up a little bit. We then come to Vollebeck, who is thought may be a 2-day witness, and then we come to K34, who's going to require protective measures and who again is allocated a substantial period of time. And so again, we must consider his application for protective measures as soon as they are properly formulated by him or those acting on his behalf, so that if those days are going to be free, we can know about it sooner rather than later. K33...
Mr. Nice, before him, is a video link facility installed already in Pristina? Is it available?
No, but I understand it. I understand the technology enables it to be made available. But I hope so. I mean, perhaps I should have checked that in advance.
Thank you.
I can't say I've actually checked the technicalities, so perhaps I should. Perhaps we can actually find out and ring, if you could get somebody to telephone Pristina. We'll try and find that out straight away. K33 is a provisional pseudonym. I'm hopeful that that witness will be available at that time, a very important witness. We trust the provisional pseudonym may be acceptable. If he is able to give evidence then, and he's a witness who will cover more than Kosovo, much more than Kosovo, it may well be that any pseudonym will be lifted at that stage. It may also be the case that that witness will be appropriate to be taken later, but then he will, of course, be taken outside the Kosovo limited period, dealing with...
Speaking for myself, if witnesses are taken out of the Kosovo time and cover it, amongst other things, that would seem to me to be a perfectly proper course. The important thing is to get through the Kosovo-based, purely Kosovo witnesses in the time allotted.
I'm afraid that you're going to see that on the timetable that I've set out, that isn't going to be possible.
Well, Mr. Nice, you know the order we've made. The appeals chamber have supported the matter. And I think now, again, I must emphasize to you the importance of finishing this evidence on time and finishing this trial on time. It seems the prosecution are not taking this matter to heart. You've heard the trial chamber yesterday explain that it's not simply this trial. There are other people waiting to be tried, and it's also the credibility of this institution which is at issue here. We see large numbers of witnesses still being produced. I must say for myself, I question how many of them are really necessary. I think we do not need, for instance, any more political witnesses. I see the experts that you're seeking to call. I question how many of them are necessary. I notice history evidence, although the trial chamber has made it quite plain its view about history evidence. But I notice that Mr. Abrahams purports to cover history, although he can't really have any great knowledge about it. He's not a historian as far as I know. And then there's sought to be called another witness. The trial chamber's view is this, that the Kosovo evidence should finish on the 26th of July. And it's a matter for you how you organize your evidence during that period. It may be that you'd like to reflect on this, that we had an important witness on Ratchak at the end, the last witness, who was actually a survivor, and described what happened. Now, it may be that that sort of evidence is more important than a large number of verifiers. Now, it's for your consideration, of course, it's your case, and how you present it's a matter for you. But the trial chamber wants to make it plain that there will be time limitations applied to all parties. You cannot have a trial which extends for a limitless period. Since we're on this issue, I can also tell you that we are minded to restrict the time for the accused's cross-examination for the crime-based Rule 92 witnesses to 3/4 of an hour, unless there are exceptional circumstances and good cause is shown as to why it should be longer. I mentioned that so you should know our thinking about these matters.
The prosecution has, of course, taken all the rulings to heart and has responded to them as best it can. It remains of the view that in this extremely large and important case, its duty is to prove its case. Its judgment on the witnesses to be recalled is reflected in the list that's before you. We recognize the need for public acceptance of what is happening here and respectfully draw to your attention that in the time of the case so far, the time devoted to evidence in chief on our calculations is 67 hours and a bit, which is, I think, something in the region of 13 full court days or 14 full court days in a conventional court, and does not, in our respectful submission, amount to anything like an excessive period of time. We have a number of problems in presenting cases. As the other figures are these. The accused on our calculation until this morning's witness, 92 hours and a bit more. The amici, 10 hours and a bit more.
Does that include the hours for cross-examination for against 92 bis witnesses?
Yes, it does. I've got the figures for the 92 bis witnesses on their own. 92 bis witnesses, those that relate to crime-based evidence. Those that relate to crime-based evidence. 5 hours and 51 minutes by the prosecution, 26 hours and 14 minutes by the accused, 18 minutes by the amici. And I'm very grateful, just before I return to my theme, I'm grateful to the video booth who tell me the following, that video link in Pristina is possible, but because of the limited equipment, the technical unit needs 10 days advance notice to get the material there. Very grateful to them. Just give me a moment.
Yes.
As I was saying, it's our duty to present this case, and I'll deal separately with issues of experts and matters of that sort, but we have to say that not only has the prosecution from the first taken every step shortening the evidence. Not all of them have been approved, but they've all been taken and offered. But we very respectfully suggest that, although of course no case can ever be perfectly presented in the leanest format, that the evidence we have presented has been necessary for proof of the case. I'll give you another document in a minute, which I promised would come your way at some stage, and it will. You cannot prove criminal case without proving the crimes, and we have therefore to call the evidence. The accused doesn't admit them, they have to be proved. The document, let me just distribute that. You've got it, Neil's document. The court will remember at an earlier stage I indicated the sort of closing document I'd prepared. This is not something that need be, I hope, registered or anything like that, but you may find it helpful. It's intended to be. It's also heavily marked that it's draft, not for final consideration, and perhaps better not to be copied or distributed. But it does that which I said I would be doing from time to time, provides an analysis under the confirmed indictment of evidence that relates to particular topics, and it's in an easily accessible format. It's of course subject to errors and corrections, and you'll see from the front sheet that it's subject to witnesses that have yet to be analysed. And it may be a document that will be a useful working document to set beside other similar material being prepared elsewhere, and we're always open to correction. But you'll see, if you look at, for example, pages 2 and onwards, then you have the general allegations, which have been covered to some degree, or significant degree. The deportation and forcible transfers start at 11, and you can see the way and the degree to which they've been covered. The transfer sites, deportation and forcible transfer sites, pick up at page 53. So let's look at one of those just as an example. We've taken at page 53 a particular paragraph, 63A, and we've set out the evidence in the summary form that relates to that. And I respectfully venture to suggest the court will not find we have in any sense overproved any of these allegations. Killing sites at 84, for reasons that we'll see when I return to the list of witnesses, are of course at the moment very substantially empty, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, because we simply haven't yet had time to get through to that material. 90 is sexual assault, 94. So I hope the document will be helpful, and I hope it will satisfy the Chamber that there has been no question whatsoever of overproving this case, and indeed if there had been, we would no doubt have been alerted to that. The allegations in this confirmed indictment were themselves highly, not selective, but highly limited in the number of sites that were referred to. No suggestion of attempting to prove the whole history. Such an exercise would, of course, have been beyond our ability. So that we have done our best. Can I now turn to the particular problems that face a prosecution of this sort? We have to prove the crimes. We have done it in the most economic way possible. We sought to have material taken in written or summarized form, and that's been rejected. We sought to have it 92 bist. That's been partially accepted. And we started off by calling one witness per site. We respectfully suggest there is nothing more that we could have done to present this case economically and responsibly. And so the other evidence is what's important. And this brings me to another topic that I was going to raise at some stage, but perhaps I can conveniently raise now, because I fear that it is we who have the experience of preparing these cases, and it's, of course, experience that won't be known to others. Cases like this, the overall case being perhaps the largest, and it's the largest case of its kind since certainly the Second World War. Cases like this would be easy to prove shortly if there was one member of the accused's inner circle who was able to come and give fully accurate and acceptable evidence of everything that happened. Maybe the case could be proved almost by the single witness. Life isn't like that. Witnesses, the closer they get to the accused, are the more difficult to approach, the more difficult to use. When we contemplate using them, we encounter the difficulties of the particular adversarial system, which is effectively premised on the basis that you have to take a witness in toto, rather than saying, well, this bit we accept and this bit we reject and would wish to cross-examine. That may be a course to which we will be driven in due course. But that's the sort of problem that we encounter. Indeed, this system which, and it's no surprise to hear me saying this system which may not in many respects be ideally suited to this category of case, is probably to be contrasted with other systems where witnesses of that proximity to an accused, whether they like it or not, would be hauled before the examining court and interrogated by the examining judge or by an advocate, accepting the bits that were acceptable to the person dealing with him and cross-examined as to the balance. Well, again, that may be a course, and I'll come to that in a second, that we're going to press you to consider. But again, it's not something that happens. And indeed, it may well be that witnesses realize, potential witnesses realize, whether they're co-accused or co-perpetrators or just too close for comfort, that if they say only so much that is acceptable and so much that is not acceptable, they may free themselves both from the pursuit of the OTP and also from the risk of coming to give evidence. But that's the...
I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you for one moment. The 10th of April, I think, was the date. Now, that was the order of the court, which you appealed unsuccessfully. You must work towards it. What we wish to see from the prosecution is the some acknowledgement that they are working towards these orders. When I see a list of witnesses, never numbered, may I say, it would be helpful if they were in future. This list, I suppose, is about 80 or 90 long. We have called 67 witnesses, or 64 to date. When I see a list this long, I'm driven to the conclusion that no attempt is being made to comply with the order, but the prosecution is going on in the same way.
May I, and I've been equable throughout, and I hope that's been appropriate, and in being equable at all times and always courteous, no doubt shielding the chamber from some of the stronger feelings that lie in the heart of the lawyers and investigators dealing with this case. In being equable throughout, I cannot deny myself the duty of responding firmly to things that are quite incorrect. The suggestion that we have not been working towards these orders is wholly incorrect, and I am inclined to be offended by it. We have...
Don't be offended, Mr. Knight.
Well, Your Honour, let me say straight away, we have worked as hard as we can to meet a timetable that the entire prosecution team regards as unworkable. If we can fit this case into the time that has been allowed, and if I may say so, allowed from the beginning without any particular explanation as to why 90 days or a day in July were the limits, we would have done so. We are doing our level best to meet the requirements of the Chamber, bearing in mind that it's our responsibility to prove this case, and bearing in mind that we will not be arguing that convictions are established if the material before you is inadequate. Can I return to the point you make about numbers? In our application, or in our motion of the, just get the date correctly, 2nd of May, we set out with absolute clarity in paragraph 2 the significance in terms of numbers of the development of the trial, and I'll just set it out again. Originally, we sought for between 90 and 110 viva voce witnesses and 123 witnesses who would be subject to the full provisions of 92 bis, so that the total witnesses would have been 213 to 233. The Chamber allowed 90 live witnesses with the possibility of calling more, on good reason being shown. We made it clear, and I'll just take you to the, again, to the figures, that if one then counts the 92 bis witnesses who are now heard for cross-examination as becoming live witnesses, sorry, I thought it was here immediately available. I think the figure went up to about 140. I'll see if I can find it. Oh, I know where it is, yeah. At least I think I know where it is. Yes, I'm so sorry. It's at page 6 in the relief sought. In seeking the variations of orders, 95 witnesses listed, which together with the 44 already called gives a total of 139 witnesses. We have at every stage cut back on witnesses we regard as unnecessarily duplicative, and as you saw today, we continue to do so. We find ourselves, and if I can take you and your colleagues back, please, Your Honour, to the list of witnesses we were looking at, where I'd got to K33 and the 19th of July. It's instructive to note what is left. Now, incidentally, history and politics, perhaps I'd better make some observations about that straight away. History, I entirely accept, is covered. There's no intention to call Mr. Abrahams, for example, to deal with history. It's in his statement, but there's no intention to call him, and you've now had his summary. As to a historian expert, we respectfully suggest one is required. In a case
we have in mind one, yes, for each side.
Well, Your Honour, I'm entirely, at the moment, as you see, we've listed possibly two, Dr. Budding and Robert Donyer, simply because neither can cover the whole period, and Donyer covers the last part of the period. But we have in mind that to set a judgment of a case like this in a historical context, and it springs from a historical context, the Chamber needs to have available to it some work of reference. We also have in mind that Mr. Topuskovich made it clear right at the beginning of the case, promising a paper that was to be forthcoming, that there were historical issues that he wanted covered. But that's in a sense a digression. If we look at where we are on the 18th and 19th of July, if I can take your eyes down the right-hand column, yes. If we had to stop there and simply take in the last week what were our best remaining witnesses, we would be unable to prove anything in respect of murder sites listed on the right-hand side. Jakovica, passing over the page, Izbica, Meyer, terrible sites where the most terrible things happen, Vusitern and so on. And in the light of the shape of this indictment, we respectfully doubt that it would be proper for us not to seek to prove those killing sites. If we look over the page a little further and just pass beyond those parts of the indictment to see what else is outstanding from our list and about which we strive to find economies, there are, first of all, I think we come really to the experts. The military expert, you'll see that there are two listed. The financial expert, who we hope will be able to cover either at the same time or in due course financial issues relating to all the three indictments. We then have some particular insider witnesses you can see referred to. And then under the heading listed in a very provisional order, various names. The demography expert seems to us is something that the Chamber would want to have. The constitutional expert, we know is something from interjections particularly by His Honour Judge Robinson a few witnesses ago, is something that you will need to have. And you know, it's very interesting for us to find how over the last several months witnesses have been reluctant in the extreme to come to this court and to be exposed to the experience here. Not because there's any reason to doubt their testimony, but perhaps for some other reasons. And we have, with considerable difficulty, located experts to help you, and they are there to help you. They're both to prove the case and to help the Chamber, to put the Chamber in a position where it can make a proper and sufficiently deep judgment. The MUP expert, whose report will be with us very shortly, is plainly something that will be desirable. Whether he can cross the boundaries of all three cases or three indictments, I'm not sure. Can I then say something, because your honours will be getting a feel for the amount of material that the prosecution say is residual. I explained at a much earlier stage that what we would do in taking every insider witness at the earliest moment and not trying to prove things in an orderly fashion, but just trying to get as much in as we could, what I explained was that there would be a residue at the end of the allotted time, and that at that stage I would have to make a decision about whether there was enough, whether I needed to apply for more or some of what was left, which is why I'm showing you what will be left. Can I take you straight away, please, to the very end of the list, just to tell you something that is both comforting in terms of timetable, but also concerning. There are a number of listed witnesses simply listed as are. They are Rule 70 witnesses. They are undoubtedly witnesses from whom you would be interested to hear. But I must tell you at the moment that there are problems with their coming before you, and I'll explain insofar as I can in public session what they are. Rule 70 witnesses require two so-called agreements. First, the agreement to provide the information for lead purposes. Second, the agreement forged between the OTP and the providing body or government that enables the witness to come. In reality, they're not agreements at all, because the provider simply can say or can set its terms. At present, the Rule 70 witnesses forecast there are witnesses in respect of whom I do not feel able to make the requests for protective measures required of me by the provider. And so you will not be hearing from those witnesses at present from me. I have to say, not only are they witnesses likely to be of considerable interest to the Chamber, but if they become available in any way, now or in due course, they would be likely to take at the very least a week, but in reality a fortnight. And they would, but there it is. I'm not prepared at the moment to put my name or the name of this prosecution to the application for protective measures required of us. And therefore, at the moment, they drop from the picture. But there is at least another potential fortnight of evidence there. And so Your Honour will see the predicament or the position in which we find ourselves. A word or so, again, it's slightly disjointed, about insiders, because I touched upon the problem, insiders or people close to this accused. I touched on the oddity of the system whereby witnesses of a certain kind can effectively bar themselves or may be able to effectively bar themselves from the witness box if they're not to be subject to cross-examination by the prosecution. It occurs to us, trying to put ourselves, as we always do, in the chair of the court, that there must be a significant list of names that the Chamber knows it would like to hear from. We know that at the beginning of this case, one of the charges placed upon the amici curiae was to advise you of what witnesses you might wish to call under your own powers. For the resolution of this case, that's all three indictments overall. It may well be that it would be appropriate now or in due course for the Chamber to identify the witnesses from whom it would wish to hear. I suspect your list and ours would be pretty close one to another, and to give thought in the particular circumstances of cases of this difficulty in calling them yourself, when they would then be subject, of course, to cross-examination by all parties, to full examination of the kind that is somewhat difficult to achieve, because only in this way may we be sure that you will have the evidence. We know the evidence. We see these people. Only then will you have the evidence that is likely to give you the best and arguably the quickest route to findings, proper findings about this case. Meanwhile, we're doing what we can with insiders who have been close to this accused. It's interesting. It's a case where, of course, everybody else knows better how to deal with it than those of us who are dealing with it, and tell us how we shouldn't call this or should call that. The first witness to come, whatever people may have said about him, was one of the very few who actually had the courage to come to this court and give evidence. And slowly, witnesses are becoming braver. And the prospects are not entirely gloomy for having more and better witnesses to reveal the full truth of what happened. But it's not something that happens overnight. And we were never in a position in any part of this case to forecast calling a single witness who could prove everything against this accused. So, Your Honour, there we are. Our present position is this. On the forecast that we have at the moment, and bearing in mind that we have to prove the crimes and that we have interposed wherever possible witnesses of a different kind who may have a more immediate value, we see ourselves by about the middle of July, and subject to some of those three-day witnesses being cancelled or not allowed, things of that sort, we see ourselves in the middle of July being several killing sites short of any evidence, short of the ability to call our experts within the time allowed, although they may possibly be capable of being called in other sections, not having the time, even should we have the inclination, to seek to call the Rule 70 witnesses.
How many killing sites would you be short of?
Just add those up. 1, 2, 3. I think it's about 6. I'll just get one of my colleagues to confirm it. But I think it's about 6.
Of a total of what?
6 out of 13, I think. It's at least half. It's about half.
So.
If everything were equal and you had all the time that you required, how long would you estimate this part of the case to take? When do you think you might finish if everything were equal?
Certainly. Our calculation, and it's always an estimation because it depends on circumstances outside our control, but I think our estimation is that if we were to prove all the killing sites, and assuming that the experts are admitted in the usual short form way, 94 bis, the statement goes in and they're simply exposed to cross-examination, which is what, of course, we would wish for all, probably bar the financial expert, is that we would require another 2 months, probably, to deal with it.
So that would be
October.
September, the end of October.
But within that time, several of the witnesses would have covered areas of Croatia and Bosnia.
We would then embark, there would then have to be at least some time for consideration of, I gather, very substantial material which is being produced on Croatia and Bosnia. How long at the moment would you think you would take over Croatia and Bosnia? I recognize you probably haven't got any detailed calculations, but just give us some idea.
Can I, before not giving you a detailed calculation, explain the position and then give you what help I can? Of course, over the last several weeks, the Bosnian and Croatian teams have been working flat out, producing the material, and indeed producing the pre-trial brief, which is served this afternoon. There has also been important and very detailed consideration given to reducing the number of locations which we will seek to prove in Bosnia, and making sure that there is consistency of approach between this and the Plavšić-Krajnik team. And that has led to a very substantial reduction. I think I can't remember how many sites it is now, in the order of 10 municipalities only. I can't remember the exact number now that we're going to attempt to prove, but I'll have it in a moment from someone or other. 14, Ms. Graham tells me, but it's reduced. The witness list, for example, has been halved, but that is still, of course, one of the necessarily generous witness lists. So that very, very substantial savings have been made from Bosnia, which is probably the biggest of all the cases yet to be tried. Frankly, the answer to the timetable question, I suspect, will lie in the hands of the accused. Will he take the same attitude towards the perpetration of evidence on the perpetration of crimes as he has taken in Kosovo or not? In Bosnia and Croatia, there is, of course, in Bosnia in particular, there's the potential for incorporating evidence from other trials where there has been cross-examination. So that...
Assuming he does take the same approach, I'm very interested in your admittedly guesstimate as to the length of the prosecution's case for Croatia and Bosnia.
I fear I would prefer to defer that until Monday, because it is. I know that you've been troubled, and I use the word neutrally, but sympathetically.
I'm interested, Mr. Knights, because my own private view is that a trial that lasts beyond a certain length of time cannot be fair. It is very difficult for a trial that is going to last 3 years to be fair to the parties.
I'm not, of course, against the principle of Your Honour's observations, although I can say nothing about the particular figures that Your Honour uses, and although it's not helpful at this stage, we all know of other cases in other jurisdictions which last a very long time. But I would prefer, if I may, to reflect with my colleagues this afternoon, if there's time between now and the final touchings to the pre-trial brief to do so, and to bring you an estimate on Monday of how many witnesses may be required to prove the non-crime-based part of both those other trials. Now, whatever estimate I'm then able to give is an estimate that may be varied either up, of course, if one gets additional but irrefusably valuable evidence, or down if one gets evidence of such value that it enables us to limit and to reduce evidence we would otherwise have to call. But rather than provide you, because I know you've had estimates from the prosecutor, I think you've even had estimates from me in the past, rather than provide you with a figure that is not accurate, I'd rather deal with it in that way, if that's acceptable to the Chamber.
Of course. We cannot spend too long on these administrative matters. We need to hear evidence.
Yes.
And our time is practically up. But clearly it is the overall timetable which is of significance. But the importance of July the 26th is that it will enable us to have time to consider, and the accused and the amici have time to prepare for the next part. If that part of the timetable slips, it means that the whole timetable slips. We're then looking at starting Croatia and Bosnia in 2003, it may be, which cannot be satisfactory. But, well, we need clearly to reflect on these matters, which we will do. Now, can we deal with Monday? Mr. Abrahams, is it your proposal now to call him live? We seem to have got some sort of
Let me just explain the position on that in a couple of seconds. He was subject to the full provisions of 92 bis yesterday, I think, but only in respect of his redacted first statement and his unredacted second statement. Once it became clear that his unredacted statement could be served, I think those procedures have now been gone through this morning with the helpful cooperation of the registry, am I right? So his unredacted statement has now been bised, and it would be possible for him to be taken on Monday or Tuesday as a 92 bis witness. We would like that to happen, subject only to this point, that one of the important features of his evidence is that Human Rights Watch prepared several reports critical of all parties in this conflict and served them on all parties, including the Yugoslav government, and I believe by his email address, the accused himself. The service of those reports, of course, is important in the information it provides to the accused, his government, his embassies, and so on, and is probably not covered in detail in the statements in the way that it would be helpful to present it. That evidence could be presented pretty swiftly because the exhibits are available. So we would, of course, for reasons of economy, prefer him to be taken subject to 92 bis and subject to that particular adjustment. He's available. We've now got the summary otherwise, but I will take him, of course, as quickly as I can. And I will not repeat areas of evidence which have been given by many other witnesses already. He's necessary to you, of course, I say necessary, certainly highly desirable to you, in order that he can give the methodology of the preparation of the book under orders.
Yes. Well, no evidence from him about the history will be admissible. We'll look at the statement and decide how much he is. One final point. I'm told that the witnesses for next week include 4 witnesses for whom leave to apply to call, since they were disclosed, or their statements were disclosed, summaries were disclosed after the order. Messrs. Mr. Mameti, Jamini, Elshani, and Avdaili. I'm told these are all witnesses outside the order.
These were 92 bis witnesses at the time, and it may be that their change of status was not associated with clarification in our minds of the rules that applied to them. I'll deal with it in more detail on Monday.
Yes. Mr. Milosevic, our time is up. We are not making any decisions. You can address us in due course on our proposal that you should be reduced for 3/4 of an hour in relation to the crime-based witnesses unless the circumstances are exceptional. Now, unless there's anything you want to raise which must be raised today, we're going to adjourn.
Well, Mr. Nice spoke for all of 1 hour,
No, he did.
in case you haven't noticed.
I know he did, but he was dealing with matters at our request, and they are essentially prosecution matters. You need have no concerns before any decisions are made which affect you or your case. You will have the chance to address us on it. But the matters that we've been dealing with are essentially matters which purely relate to the prosecution.
Yes,
but as far as the prosecution is concerned and the prosecution case, we state here that there is an enormous number of some kind of secret witnesses. There is a large number that is mentioned here. I have already objected to that, and I think that this is quite untenable. Secondly, I think that at the expense of my time for cross-examination, you cannot give a privilege to the other side, and they keep showering materials on us anyway. Gentlemen, do you know that I was told today that I would be getting 50 documents, 50 boxes of documents and 50 binders? How do you imagine in any kind of proceedings and in any kind of organization, during an ongoing trial, during cross-examination, during preparations for cross-examination, that I can read 50 boxes of documents and 50 binders with this kind of organization that you have established? Not to mention the fact that for an hour now, you have been discussing some list that I haven't got at all. I simply think that in this way, one cannot work.
Has the accused got the list? I'm told you have got the list of witnesses, the latest one is to be called.
Well, I got this that Mr. Nice proclaimed to be some kind of crown paper, some kind of crown achievement, where I see the important witnesses are the person who said for himself that he was a thief, an informant, and a criminal, the one that was called K5, and Ratomir Tanic, some witness he was. So if you're trying to prove your case with witnesses like that...
Don't comment on the evidence now. We have in mind the amount of material which is about to be served on you. We'll consider what we should do about that. We'll reflect on that.
Well, today they said that they were organizing a truck in order to bring in these documents. And now in connection with Abrahams, can I just tell you a few facts so that you could think about them? You did not allow an OTP investigator to testify, and this witness is not only an investigator, but he also worked on conceiving and preparing the indictment itself. So his entire story is the small-scale indictment, actually. Please look at his statement, page 4 and page 5. At the end of page 4, from April, I worked as an advisor to the Office of the Prosecutor at the ICTY from April to June 2000, and yet again in August 2001. I carried out an investigation and made an analysis for the indictment related to Kosovo against Slobodan Milošević and others. So this is what he mentioned, that he worked for the OTP on 2 occasions during those periods. He omitted to mention, for example, Look at page 1. The witness statement of Ibrahim Rugova, who testified here. It says here, interview carried out by Fred Abrahams in the capacity of OTP investigator. This interview was conducted on the 1st and 3rd of November, and this statement was given in the year 2002. So he could have included the time when he worked as an investigator for that same OTP. He should have mentioned that in his statement, or rather he decided to keep silent about it. So you do have a man here who worked on preparing the indictment, who is the author of a book called Under Orders, and that coincides with the indictment. This was done on behalf of Human Rights Watch. He's an investigator of the OTP. He interviewed Rugova. Most of Rugova's statement is actually contained in his statement here. So I think that this entire matter pertaining to him was actually put forth by this other side over there with a propaganda purpose in mind.
We will consider that matter in due course. Now, the time has really come for us to adjourn. We'll consider the admissibility of Mr. Abrahams' evidence on Monday or Tuesday, whenever we get to it. We'll adjourn now at 9 o'clock Monday morning.
Mogu li još samo da zamolim da dobijem redosled svedoka za iduću nedelju danas u toku dana? Da naredite da dobijem redosled svedoka za iduću nedelju danas u toku dana, a ne da mi se najavljuju minut pre izlaska svedoka.
List with the right order of witnesses for next week, rather today, during the course of today, rather than have this done subsequently.
If it's not plain, Mr. Nice, perhaps you could...
The lists have been prepared and served in the usual way on a regular daily basis, I think.
Oh, well, we'll adjourn now.
All right. Får vi